My first experience fishing was not even anyone in my family taking me. It was my neighbors taking me fishing, and I was like 4 or 5. And again, just I had a line and a hook and a worm. And I begged my parents for a fishing rod. I got a spinning rod, and I got really good at bass fishing, and I enjoyed it. And then some crazy person came along and told me I should try fly fishing. I feel like we should have always been really women focused when it comes to fly fishing, because women have such a knack for it right off the bat. Fly fishing is a very finesse sport, and so when I'm instructing, women are hanging on every word that I say. They're really processing everything that I'm telling them when I'm teaching them, and because it's finesse, it takes like, you know, timing and sensitivity and like very dialed in touch and feel, especially for the casting. That's why I do what I do. We're bringing people happiness and peace and finding something that they enjoy doing while we're outdoors and all enjoying it together.
Spending time outdoors isn't about escaping life. It's about remembering where we fit. Here, we honor the traditions that shape us, revere the life around us, care for the land beneath us, and connect to the world and the people around us. Because at the end of the day, we're all standing on the same ground. This is the ground between us.
Alrighty, hi y'all, and welcome to The Ground Between Us, the podcast where the outdoors connects us all. My guest today is Christa Clasgens. She is the owner and operator of Silver Hen Fly Company, which is a fly guiding service that operates in Ohio, PA, right? And then West Virginia and Ohio a little bit too as well.
Yeah, so what I do differentiates between each states, but a lot of my operations are out of Pennsylvania.
So I like to start with just a few rapid fire questions so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. So what is, like, if you walk up to a stream, like obviously everybody knows, like, you know, fish the seams or like foam is home and all those things. What's one underrated like water feature, I guess, like a spot where you would throw a fly that most people would walk right by?
That's a really good question. I feel like when we're learning how to read water and where to fish, everyone just sticks so close to the status quo that they forget to look for different structures. I think it's really important too to walk the streams when it's low water so you can kind of see what's underneath it all and how the rocks in the bed kind of forms the holes in the creek. And I'm out year round, so when it gets summer pool and it's exceptionally low, I can kind of see where the deeper spots are that I didn't know before. But um, I typically go for deeper pools and holes where fish would just pool up or pot up. Um, but in the spring and during spawning season, so fall time and then springtime, fishing that lower water that's maybe a foot or two deep, but and riffly always produces really well. And I'm guilty about it, just walking right by it myself. But that's where the fish are spawning.
Yeah, I'm always amazed how it doesn't happen for me very often, but in places like that, you'll just be dragging. I don't fly fish at all. I haven't figured out spinning gear well enough to move on to something else, but you'll just be dragging a rooster tail or whatever through the water, and then just the flash of like, how was there a fish there? And I could like physically could not see it. It's just incredible how they can blend in like that.
Yeah. I think that when we first get started fishing, at least this is my experience, I had a really hard time being able to find them. But it's like mushroom hunting. Like if the more you're out, the more you know what to look for, how to look for them. You start to see the shapes, you start to see the colors. I'm a lot better now than I was when I first started, but it's just the trained eye. It's the years of training your eyes.
Yeah, you develop like a search image in your brain, and it's also like I have a autistic son, and they one of the things with autism is gestalt processing, which means like kind of understanding everything all at once. And I think a lot of things like that are that way. Like before we recorded, we were talking about ramps, and like to explain to someone what a ramp looks like, I struggle with a little bit, but because in my brain, it's just that's the way it is. You know what I mean? I can look 200 yards away and tell that it's a ramp, but to explain to someone else why it looks like that, I mean, the red stem in the leaf, it looks like ramp leaf. You know what I mean? Like I struggle with that, but
Yeah, that reminds me of that meme You can tell that it's this way just because of the way that it is.
Oh yeah, the nature walk guy. Yeah. Yeah. What is your favorite piece of public land or like public water you've ever visited?
Well, I'm biased
Mhm.
because my favorite ones are the ones that I like to fish the most, but there are quite a few ones. I feel like a lot of them come in controversy too, because before a lot of the places that we know as public lands were once privately owned or in the process of determination by the federal and the state. So, for example, Ohio Pile, before it was a state park, a lot of it was privately owned. And then the state came in and said the pollution's bad, the river is shot in a lot of ways. It needs to be a source of clean water. So they came in and claimed eminent domain and gave fair market value at the time for the properties that were out there. And some people were able to take advantage and some people lost a lot. So it's super controversial. But Ohio Palace State Park is probably one of my favorite areas. I think it's 16,000 acres, something like that. It has a little bit of everything that I like to do. It's got the white water. It's definitely got the fishing. It's got amazing bike trails, amazing hiking trails, and the Great Allegheny Passage goes right through there. So the trail that goes from Pittsburgh to DC, though I've never done it that far, but the section that I do it is runs right along the Youghiogheny. And there's every resource out there. I don't think people know too, like the hunting resources that are out there. You can hunt state park land, and there are ginormous bucks. I'm plugging the state park. It's gonna be overrun by hunters next season by me saying this. But there's a lot of deer. There are a tremendous amount of turkey out there, ramps, morels, mushrooms, everything you can think of. It's out there. So I'd probably say that's my favorite. But coming from like a generational side of West Virginia, a lot of public lands out here are some of my favorite. I really love the Blackwater and its trail system, its fishing, some of the public lands along the Cheat as well. I feel like there's just way too many in West Virginia for me to just hone in onto one. But I have fished nearly all the ones that have the best fishing.
Mhm.
But for Pennsylvania specifically, Ohio.
Yeah. Ohio Pile is a pretty popular, like, you know, day trip destination from around here too. Is it Cucumber Falls? My mom likes to go to quite a bit. She goes up there a couple times
Mhm.
a summer.
Yeah.
It's really great. But yeah, we went down a couple months ago to Blackwater when we got one of those times where it was like 50 and rainy in the winter. And the falls were looking incredible. Like I don't think enough people go in the summer when it's like just a trickle, and they need to go when there's a lot of water actually going over them because that's when it's really cool. But I forget the name of the other waterfall in the park, but like if you go back towards the lodge, there's another waterfall it's not one continuous fall like Blackwater is. It's a bunch of little dips, but it's way bigger and it's really crazy. And I was like, I bet you there's a fish in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a cascade fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna make it my mission sometime this spring to try to figure out how to get down there and at least try to run a line in the water. I don't know if I'll catch anything, but
There's a lot of treacherous terrain to get down into the canyon, but there are a lot of fish down there. I'm not sure if it's illegal or highly frowned upon to
Mm.
hike into the canyon and fish it, but I know people that have done it,
Oh,
myself included. But yeah, it takes a certain water level for safety wise to go down there. But there is a lot of good fishing down there.
gotcha. Well, if it's illegal, then I'm just kidding, but you know, we'll see what happens.
We'll keep that one off the podcast. Yeah, maybe I'm refraining from not plugging too many places because I love fishing them so much, and it only takes like a few hundred people to like totally skunk the whole river system. But I really do enjoy the shavers,
Uh,
and I won't specifically talk about the section that I really enjoy because it's
mm,
huge. Shavers is huge, but I mean, aside from DNRs consistently stalking it, there are natural reproduction in a lot of spots, and then some brook trout creeks that are tributaries to it as well. But it's a grueling, well, specifically the area that I like to fish. It is a very grueling hike to get to the location, but it's worth it.
yeah, that's awesome. I pretty much only fish for stalkers. I've never really gotten into like really getting back there for fish, but that's something I would like to get more into. And I don't please don't blow any of your spots on here.
I love West Virginia because there are so many public lands that I could be talking about an area and someone would be for sure that they know what I'm talking about. And it's like totally the opposite direction.
Hmm.
But if you're planning on going out and doing some fishing, maybe I'll make it a goal of mine to teach you the art of the fly.
That would be my one friend has really gotten into it, and I work with guys from Pennsylvania, and all the time those guys like that's all they do. It's way bigger up there than it is down here, but
That's my
I don't know.
goal. That's what I'm seeing too. I just moved back um, a few months ago after being gone for a few years, but there is a huge presence in Pennsylvania and a really strong presence over in Ohio where I was living just for a couple of years. But after coming back, a big goal of mine has been to educate and do it with really low barriers of entry. So free classes, free clinics, and things like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I grew up like white trash fishing, like, power bait on a hook with, floated off the bottom and a bobber like up between whatever eyelets you actually had left on your pole. Every pole I've owned till last year was an ugly stick that my pap pulled out of a dumpster when his Lions Club was doing like community clean out days. So
Yeah. All I had was a
there,
line and a hook and a worm. So
yeah,
I get it.
there's sort of two very different worlds of trout fishing, and it's really interesting. Hey, everybody, I hope you're enjoying the episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you are enjoying, it would be great if you could follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you can see more episodes. Leave the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're on if that's applicable. Write us a review, all that stuff. You can also follow me and the show on Instagram at The Ground Between Us. I post there every day. And again, thank you so much for listening. This is so much fun for me. It's such a privilege to be able to do this. I have an incredible life, and I'm so thankful for it. And thank you for being a part of it. Now back to the show. So, did you grow up fishing, or was that something that you found later in life?
My first experience fishing was not even anyone in my family taking me. It was my neighbors taking me fishing, and I was like 4 or 5. And again, just I had a line and a hook and a worm. We just would toss it out there. And I really, really enjoyed it more than the average bear. And I begged my parents for a fishing rod. Still, no one in my family fishes, knows how to fish. And I would go and have my parents take me. And then when I was old enough, I'd take my bike down to the water. And I grew up right by the reservoir. So I would go down there and fish a lot. And then I kind of stopped for a while after I was like in my preteen years, kind of fishing. And I was doing sports, school was a lot. But then when I went to college and I was surrounded by the Mon and the Cheat and all these amazing areas to fish, I was like, I'm going to get back into it. I got a spinning rod and I got really good at bass fishing and I enjoyed it. And then some crazy person came along and told me I should try fly fishing. And at first I wasn't sure. I was like, I think a hook flying through the air is like a liability. But it turned out that it was actually really very peaceful. And it was the next challenge into just, my fishing direction and where I was going with it. And I loved it. And I spent a lot of years dialing in the skill for many years with really bad habits. And then watching a lot more videos, getting a lot more feedback, and then eventually feeling confident enough to go and start teaching. And nothing makes you great at something unless you can take a little bit of knowledge from what you already have and then teach somebody what you know. And your skill set, I don't know why, it's just something that happens. Your skill set just flies off. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I think it's just that you have to actually, like I talked about, like just earlier about like you just know that thing is the way it is. Like you actually have to figure out what that means, and that codifies it in your mind.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, for sure. I feel like fly fishing is, well, first of all, I will say this. I am not very good at math. I am sufficient where I need to be, given that my current role, I'm always doing number stuff. So I'm not going to sit on here and tell everyone I'm bad at my job. But I was never good at like figuring out things. But for fishing, it's essentially all a math equation. The X, the Y, and the Z are your variables. It could be location, your bait or your lure, the depth you're fishing, the time of year, etc. But if you get them all to balance out, it will equal fish every time. And
yeah,
I thought that was beautiful. And I really liked, you know, dialing in the variables to see what would work.
yeah, tinkering with stuff is fun for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So, how did you go from just sort of fishing as a hobby to starting Silver Hen?
That's a really good question. I was still in college and I joined the WVU Fly Fishing Club.
Mhm.
And I thought those boys were going to help me get better and show me spots and hold my hand. And they did none of that. We were all in college. They just wanted to go fishing and hang out. And I quickly realized that I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna get all the resources and help that I need, but I have people that I could run stuff by and can do some trips with, and it can be fine. And so I started doing that. And a representative from Project Healing Waters, the local chapter, reached out and they wanted us to come help volunteer for tying classes and then eventually volunteer guiding. And a lot of us were apprehensive because we were like, we're not professional guides. And they were like, well, we just need, a lot of our veterans in our program have mobility issues or are just slower getting to the water, and having you there would help. We try to have a volunteer to each participant. So we said, okay. And the first time we ever guided, me and the kids from that club, was up in Conneaut in Ohio for steelhead. I only gone up there like a handful of times and had caught some fish, but I wasn't really super sure. But it gave that trip after that trip, it gave me a ton of confidence because I stuck to my guns on some of the things that I did know, and it panned out really well. And I feel like I had to earn my respect in that program, just like anywhere. I'm still every day earning respect. But I think after that trip, and I helped my participant get his fish, that they were like, okay, maybe she does know what she's talking about. But that's where the name Silver Hen comes from. That was the first guiding experience, and my participant caught a silver hen, steelhead. So I just thought it would be fitting to incorporate that little bit of history into the name.
Yeah, that's awesome. So were they dismissive of you because you were a woman or because you were new or both or
Maybe just because I was new. I can't say right away it was because I was a woman, but it didn't take me very long to like win the favor. I think anyone new that comes in, there's some apprehension. You don't know who they are, where they're from, what they know, what they're capable of. And, after spending 2, 3 days on the water with them, you find out pretty quickly what they are capable of and what they can and can't do. And, but regardless, they're happy to have me there helping, being an extra pair of hands. But they will question you when you want to put a certain fly on their line and you're 100% sure it's going to work. And then it does.
yeah. Fly fishing isn't something you can fake. You can't act like you know what you're doing and then show up and expect people to believe you once you actually start fishing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty true.
I'd imagine it separates the wheat from the shaft. Is that the phrase? I don't know. I'd imagine you figure it out pretty quickly.
We do, yeah. It separates the men from the boys pretty quick.
There you go. That's better. So when you're teaching people, like beginners, what are like the biggest hurdles for them to overcome?
Uh, I think there is a lot of expectation on their end sometimes. I think people quickly realize it's not as intuitive as you might think. And so people are very hard on themselves, I fear, because they want to do well. And I really encourage them to do well and give it their best shot. So I try to keep things very light. I really enjoy comedy. I try to find a little bit of humor in every aspect of life just because, why not? You want to make it a good life or you want to make it a grueling one. We can make it a good life. Put a little comedy and humor into it. And they really respond to that. It kind of takes the tension away. It kind of takes their inhibitions away a little bit. And then I can start making recommendations to them and similes for the way they should do things. So just like with the casting stuff, we use like comparisons, like the paintbrush. And I sometimes get very philosophical with it, especially when we're doing like an overhead cast. It's like the what you might think of your stereotypical "a river runs through it" cast, but
Mhm.
I want you to know that that's not a real cast. That's a TV cast. But the simple, what you see on TV overhead cast, I talk a lot about balance, and it's really hard for people to balance out their back cast from their front cast because you don't have eyes in the back of your head. And it's not very intuitive at first, but then I go really deep, talk about how I try not to go deep, but when I do, I talk about how life is all about balance and your cast is everything as much as that. It's all about
Mm.
balance. And then they're like, okay. So then they start thinking about it a little differently. And then when they start getting kind of lazy, when we're learning to cast, like I got make a joke and get them fired back up and back into it. But it's supposed to be light. It's supposed to be fun. And when we bring the fun into the learning process, it's reinforcing them wanting to be there, them wanting to learn and be good at it, and build the muscle memory and the knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. And there is sort of in fly fishing culture, like as someone from the outside, seems like they take themselves a little too seriously. And once I get like when I go fishing, like once I get on the riverbank, like the rest is just gravy. It doesn't really matter what happened. I mean, I'm trying to catch fish, but like that's sort of a side effect of just being where I'm at.
Yeah, we do. Some of us do take ourselves very seriously. I try not to because it's supposed to be fun and
Right.
it's just my personality to have a good time. But I think that's why maybe there is a clash of personalities sometimes in the fly fishing world. I'm sure that you may have seen some of that, but we're all out there to have fun. We're not on Survivor. Like, we're not out there fishing to stay alive. It's just all in good fun. And I think people that do put a little fun before it kind of have the better outcomes overall.
Right, yeah. And it's not to say that you can't take it seriously, but like some people get like really angry and upset and you know what I mean? It's like it's not it's not that serious, man,
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
I think that sometimes passions come into it, but at the end of the day, like it's just fishing.
Yeah.
You can make it fun or you can make it, annoying and frustrating. And your clients will pick up on your vibe like so quickly and they will adjust. So keeping the spirits positive and light is totally on the guide at all times. And I feel like some people forget that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So you'll have to forgive me. Did you grow up in West Virginia? I can't.
I was born in Virginia,
Okay.
and raised there, right over in Woodbridge. But I came back at the age of 18 to West Virginia. All my family's from Randolph and mostly Upshur County. And then, funny enough, after I moved up to Pennsylvania, I was over in Fayette County in Connellsville, and I had met extended family that I didn't know that I had up there. And this whole time growing up, I thought that I was like this weirdo in my family that was like really outdoorsy and like to fish and nothing like my parents, nothing like my siblings. And so I thought I was like this black sheep. But then after moving in or just around Appalachia, West Virginia, and then Pennsylvania, I met my extended family over at Upshur in Randolph County, and then again in Fayette and Westmoreland County in Pennsylvania. And I'm like them. They're mountain people. I'm not the black
Mhm.
sheep. Everyone back in Virginia, they're black sheep. So making that connection there really made me feel like I found where I need to be because I never felt like I belonged in Virginia, at least the part that I was in, which was northern, just outside of DC. And I had some family too down in southwestern Virginia, not West Virginia, but over
Mhm.
in Pulaski County, over in Virginia. And they were more like me too. They were mountain people and they lived on top of a hill and they had raspberries growing down their driveway. And I always made an excuse to go out there and hang out with them. But it's weird growing up somewhere and feeling like you never will belong. And then you go somewhere else and you knew it's exactly where you should have been the whole time.
Yeah, that sounds hard.
It was weird. It was weird. And the cultures are very different.
Mhm.
I can't I go back home and visit sometimes, but just the people I grew up with and the people that I associate with now and see around town in West Virginia every day now is just it's totally different. But I do take like little pieces of like that urban side of me out with to West Virginia with me. It's just part of like, I guess, my path and the way that I've diversified myself over the years.
Yeah. There's like even if you're not like an outdoorsy person, like living in those more rural areas, there's just like a reliance and a relationship with the land that you don't get in those urban areas. I was talking to a different guest last week and we were talking about how like in the reality is a lot of places in West Virginia, like if you would need police, EMS, fire, like they're an hour or more away. So
Yeah.
there's just sort of this like it's you and the people around you, and you guys sort of got to make do with what's going on because no one's coming to help you anytime soon.
Yeah. The self-reliance is really strong out in Appalachia. I mean, we have like more EMS services now and police services now than we've ever had
Hmm.
every year, right? But it's never, I feel like generationally, it's never been that way. And so I think we've been culturally uh, uh, transitioned into knowing that we shouldn't have to rely on that every day.
Right. And even not emergency stuff. Like I was bear hunting at Dolly Sods a couple years ago, dropped my gun in the dirt, and I thought I brought my cleaning kit. It was a handgun cleaning kit. So I had to drive. The nearest Walmart that had cleaning supplies was an hour and a half away. So like, you know, even just something just as simple as going to town is a real undertaking when you live in those places. And I think that gets lost to people who aren't from there, but that also just sort of fosters that relationship with the land and just the I don't know exactly how to explain it. Sort of you you have an understanding of a lot of things that other people don't.
For sure. I'd say if you want to learn a lot about where someone's from, you just take a look in their car, right? So if they have like a lot of emergency stuff, like blanket back there, jumper cables, freeze-dried rations,
Mhm.
something maybe like a rifle cleaning kit instead of a
Mhm.
handgun cleaning kit, they might be from the mountains. And then you might look at someone who's got like, I don't know, some gift bags in there and whatever city people have in their car, or whatever they leave in their car, and you could tell the difference pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I work with a lot of people from like urban Pittsburgh too, and it's really interesting just like the ways, and I'm not like, you know, Daniel Boone or anything, but like I do environmental inspection, so we're outside all the time, and they'll look at something and be like, "Oh, that's interesting," and I'll be like, "Yeah, well, I can tell this, this, and this, and this from that." Like I wonder what happened there. Well, this thing happened, and this is how I can tell. Just sort of those understandings of those things, I think, add a lot of richness to your life that other people don't experience, and I think that's really interesting.
Oh, for sure. And I'd argue that the Pittsburgh area is probably the like one of the most stand on their own shoulders kind of city.
Mhm.
It's a blue collar city,
Mhm.
and the people are super resilient. Just for the major city in Appalachia, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
nearly every person that I've met near the Pittsburgh area, they've taught me something about self reliance. But I can't say the same about like other cities that I've been to. So Pittsburgh is like that one off for sure.
Mhm. So, you went to WVU then.
I did, yeah.
Did you major in something outdoorsy or?
Well, uh, I had a minor in horticulture because I really like plants.
Mhm.
And it was right when we were getting started with the whole legalization process in the state. And I was like, let me just take that as a minor in case a business opportunity presents itself. And one never did. Not that I really worked hard to seek it out, but at the end of the day, I got a minor and I got to work with all sorts of different plants, and it gave me a huge appreciation for them. But my major was business, and then I had three areas of emphasis, which were marketing, management, and finance. So I
Mm.
could diversify with kind of where I wanted to go and what field, and I didn't have to just pick one of those. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. Though I will say anyone who's thinking about doing a business degree, it is like all math. And no one told me before that it was going to be all math. But all they said was, "You're such a businesswoman. You should be a business major." And I thought, yeah, okay. Because it's like all the glam and like you don't see any of the hard work behind it. And as I stated earlier, I am very bad at math, or at
Mhm.
least I think I'm very bad at math. And it's like accounting and finance and calculus. But I got through it. Um, and I thought for a long time that I wouldn't need any of the knowledge that I learned in those courses for that degree. And having my own business today really helps a lot. And then, damn near every job that I've had since college, I've used a lot of those skills. So it was worth it. It really has been paying for itself.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and it I guess it worked out well since you are a business owner now. So, mission accomplished, I
Mission
guess.
accomplished. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about like the guiding that you do and just sort of your business overall.
I feel like there's a misconception with part of my guiding, a couple of misconceptions. So, I'm very women focused, but I feel like we should have always been really women focused when it comes to fly fishing because women have such a knack for it right off the bat. But I guide everyone,
W- Why
men,
do you
women, children.
why do you think it is that women have such a knack for it?
Fly fishing is a very finesse sport. And so when I'm instructing, women are hanging on every word that I say. They're really processing everything that I'm telling them when I'm teaching them. And because it's finesse, it takes like, you know, timing and sensitivity and like very dialed in touch and feel, especially for the casting. And I feel like, not to make a generalization, but this is just my experience. Men sometimes, when the line or the cast isn't doing what they want it to do, their answer is to like just try to power through it, give it more energy, more muscle, and it just doesn't work that way. It's all about technique. I don't know if you're a SpongeBob fan, but
Yeah.
yeah, I am a really big SpongeBob fan. So
Uh-huh.
if you remember that episode where they're yelling at Squidward, technique, technique,
Yes.
technique,
Hmm.
that's me. And like every clinic or every teaching scenario, I'm always like, it's the technique, don't power through it. But I never really have to say that as much with women. It's usually with my gentleman clients. But they get through it. They start listening after a while. I've just got to find what they're willing to compare it to or listen to. Sometimes some of them want me to be more serious. Sometimes some of them want me to be a little more funny. And I just work from them from there. Every client is different.
Yeah, I also do like competitive weightlifting stuff like strongman, powerlifting, stuff like that. Which I always say strongman's a terrible name for a sport because it implies that I'm strong. But listening to a lot of like coaches of high-end athletes in that space and even just athletes in general, they almost all say they would prefer to work with women instead of men because they're just infinitely more coachable.
I don't know what it is. I think maybe they just listen better. I don't
Just
know. Me
yeah, it's just
personally.
ego.
Well, I say that, but then like, if you ask my wife, she'd probably say that like my listening skills on out of 10 were probably like a 3. So
Mhm.
we're all guilty of it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry, you were telling me about your guiding before I interrupted you.
Yes. So the misconception that I do a lot of women's clinics. So I think that's why people think that I only guide women. And I've heard that. Um, and that um, I'm only bound to one state. I'm always in different states guiding, as long as I have like my permitting and stuff, which I'm like always up to date on. But I think the misconception is, well, I just saw her guiding in Pennsylvania last week. I don't know why she's in Ohio this week or, X, Y, and Z, as if I can't do both. I do whatever the hell I want, And I think that confuses people because I don't think they know that they can also do whatever the hell they want. That's also a misconception, or that I only do teachings. So that does come true partially for West Virginia. So in West Virginia, I don't have a registered business license to guide. It's a outfitter's license. So I don't guide per se in West Virginia. I instruct, but there are shops that contract me out and I'm on their outfitter permit to guide. Some of them are just through regular shops and some of them through private waters or whatever. And I'm just happy to go wherever people want me or people need me. And I feel like a lot of them do reach out when they do have women clients and they want to be able to give them a female guide, which I'm like, I'm not going to say no to that. But
Well,
the reality is I'll guide anybody as long as I'm available and they want me there.
so when you and I don't mean to just keep harping on your gender, but like when
By all means, harp.
are you getting a lot of women clients who are like this is their first time fly fishing, or do you have a lot of people seeking you out in that way?
Oh, for sure. I think it's because I deal with a lot of beginners, but I deal with people from all skill levels. A couple things happen. One, women will say, I want to get into fly fishing just because they've seen their friends do it or they've seen it online and they think it would be a really great thing to do. They're noticing there's a lot of women's programs around and they really want one-on-one time. And I'm totally cool to take them out and get them dialed in and make sure that they're ready to take time on the water by themselves and they're comfortable with that. And then two, maybe they already have a partner that already fly fishes and they want to help improve their skill level so that they can go out together and have a great time and not be burdensome to one another. And that, it's kind of like skiing. If you have a partner that skis and you don't, but you want to get good, you maybe take a class at the resort or something. Same situation. But I really do see like a lot of women getting excited about going out with their friends and doing it as opposed to the latter, because there's so many women's programs now than there were. Like when I started fly fishing started fly fishing when I was 19. And I'm 32 now. So it's been a long time. And back then there weren't really nearly the programs that there are today. There's women's nonprofits for fly fishing. There's free clubs for women fly fishing. There's women's clinics. And it's like women have always been the biggest growing demographic in fly fishing for like the last like 15, 20 years, give or take. But the businesses are now just like, you know what? Maybe we should start honing into that market. Maybe now we start doing stuff. So it took them 15 years, but here we are. I'm just glad that they're doing it. And there's just so many resources, some resources that are super affordable and some resources that are free. And then there's like everything online and role models. And that's really what drove me and helping me get better, is there was a lot of female role models online. And I loved watching their videos and tuning into their content. And they inspired me.
Do you get men a lot that you're guiding where you kind of have to prove yourself, or like they're dismissive of you and you have to kind of let them know what's up?
Oh, like every single time. Yeah, every single time. Which is funny though, because some of the clients that I've had, and I've had to kind of show them a few things and show them who I am. Some of them are like some of my really great friends now. I've had a client, this gentleman who's a little bit older than me, and when I was working at an outfitter over in Ohio Pal before I had my own license, he didn't know whose guide was going to be that day, but I showed up, took him out, put him on the water. He wasn't listening. And we pulled the boat over, anchored down. And I said, yeah, you want your drift to look like this. And I never try to catch a fish in front of clients. I'm just trying to demonstrate what the drift should look like and how far out it should be. And then, it's going down and then all of a sudden hook into a fish. And I'm like, okay, here you go, take the rod. And he's like, okay. So then it clicked. He was like, maybe she does know what she's talking about. And that was just probably one of the easier examples that I could think of, but like, all the time. And sometimes I do get sassy with them, but I try to do it in a funny way. Or like specifically on the yacht, I think you have really great outcomes when you cast further away from the boat. It's a huge river, but the fish just don't come by the boat. They don't eat by the boat. They don't, it's like a 30-foot cast that you're making. And sometimes on the fly, that can be difficult. But I'm like, they're at least going to eat 30 feet out. And then it's always the male clients that are like, well, in Colorado. And I'm like, well, this ain't Colorado. So listen to what I'm telling you. And then they'll finally, the second half of the float, start casting further out and then hooking the fish. And I'll say something smart ass like, that drip was like 30 feet away, wouldn't you say? And they're like, yeah. And then they start understanding what I'm doing and they're like, all right.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, all right, shut up. But by then we've like already made friends with them, but women have no hesitation, there's no hesitation. They're like, right, okay, gotcha. And they just rely on me to tell them what I need to tell them to get that cast out there or to make that perfect drift or whatever it is.
Yeah. To me, like if I showed up somewhere and my guide was a woman, I'd be like, okay, this chick's hardcore. You know what I mean?
It's not always like that though, yeah.
That's
I,
the reasoning I would take. When you
I
say it's
wish
not always like that, you mean the clients aren't always like that, or the guide isn't always like that?
the clients aren't always like that. I wish every guy that pulled up to my boat was like, yeah, like I'm gonna listen to her today. Like she knows what
Yeah.
she's talking about. I wish I had that. And I hate to make it like a male versus female thing, but the way we interact and the way we communicate with each other is very different. And the way we get success from one another is very different. It looks different. The celebration of success is very different, But, I would be doing myself a huge disservice to say that, we've been talking a lot about male versus female in the fly industry. I would be lying if I said that that didn't come into play with some of my feats and some of my failures as a business owner and some of my contention and just as a presence in the fly industry, because it has come in. It's a big part of it. I feel like it's easy for people to make me a target because of it. And I've had to develop over time like this tough skin where, as you're seeing now, like I'm, making a joke here and there and laughing about stuff. And that keeps it light for me. That makes me go the extra mile and continue doing this. Because if I took it seriously every day, I wouldn't still be in this, you know? Um, and the way that I'm treated by peers in the industry is different than if I were a man. And that's not and people can test that sometimes. And they say, well, you don't know that. I have seen people within the same situation as me get treated completely different because they were men. And I try not to think about it as being like a contributing factor to the different treatment, but it is. And I think for a long time that it was just more, conducive for me to ignore it. And sometimes I still do. It's better not to focus on it for my sake. Just do
Well,
what I want to do, how I want to do it. It's not going to look like everyone else's way of doing things. It's not going to look like everyone else's way of contributing to the industry. But for me, it works. And a lot of people don't think it does, but it does. In a lot of ways, it does.
yeah. Yeah, it's like that saying, beware of an old man in a young man's profession, beware of a woman in a man's profession, because at least that's the way I would look at it.
Oh, for sure. I've seen ladies come in, get disheartened, and then leave. And the ones that are still around are like we've grown such tough skin, we're getting crusty after a while,
Mm,
We're like salt of the earth people, but sometimes we just start, getting crystallized with all of it. But that's why I think I enjoy bringing so many new people in. The new fresh faces of fly fishing, clients, new guides, a new industry people, etc. They're very refreshing. They haven't been ruined yet. They haven't been spoiled by like the negative side of it. So I do hang out with a lot of new people and encourage them to come out and fish with me. A, because I like making friends, and it's always good to have more people to go in the water and fish with. And B, because they have such a fresh outlook on things.
yeah. What is that your favorite part about guiding, is showing new people like how awesome fishing is?
Yeah. Yeah. When I started getting better at fly fishing, it would bring me so much joy and happiness when I did well and I caught fish and when I went to a creek and I mission accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish that day. And I thought to myself, man, everyone should get to experience this happiness and this joy and this pride. And so, and that wasn't initially the way that it went. It was, I've gotten good and I feel confident and I feel like I can teach people now so they can also learn to get those skills and feel the same way that I feel. It's like after a while that I had to build my confidence into that. But it wasn't always, I want to go and be a guide. I feel like there was just so many people that wanted to learn and I was forced, but not really, into the industry and being a part of it. And, after I was meandered that way into that direction, I was happy to be there and I'm still happy to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. What so like earlier we were talking about morels and ramps and things like that. Are and you said you like plants a lot. So like what other sort of, when you're on the river, like what are some of your favorite things about being there besides the fish?
Uh, I think there's a lot of instinctual things that go on when you're on the water. Water has been in humans' lives since the dawn of time. And because of that, instinctually, the sound of running water and it's the birds and it's the peepers and it's the seeing the bugs and the hatching. And when I have the opportunity to come up onto like a piece of water and before I start fishing right away, I try to take a minute and sit and watch and observe because I feel like just 5 minutes of that teaches us so much about what's going on. And I'll give you an example. I come up to a waterway that's got trout in, like, a decent amount of trout in it. Towards the evening, the hatches really start coming off and you start seeing fish rise. But before you start seeing that, the first animals to like hone into it are the birds. So you're sitting, maybe you're wading in the river, or just sitting by it, and all of a sudden you start seeing the birds fly around right over by the water, maybe even coming down towards the water and scooping something off, and then 2 to 5 minutes later you start seeing the fish rise. So right when I start seeing those birds come down and swoop around, I can see there's a hatch going on, or it's like starting to kick off. And that tells me, all right, so the fish are going to start looking up and coming to the surface and trying to get bugs off the surface, or maybe the bugs are still eating the nymph's equivalent before the bug hatches, or the emergers of that fly before it happens. And that's all because I gave myself the 5 minutes to watch. And I love seeing that, and me knowing what it is, like me knowing what's happening. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool, because the average bear would just be like, oh, the birds are out, they wouldn't think anything of it. But it all is all very peaceful. And I feel like a lot of us have a lot of noise in our heads constantly from the everyday hustle and bustle of just work and life. I mean, we were, put on this earth to like eat berries in a cave, and we are constantly bombarded by constant information and constant information overload. And when we can take a minute or a few hours to go out and enjoy ourselves and really just be in there with nature, we've just put ourselves completely on a different mental track of what's instinctually right that we should be doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I talk a lot about like depth of experience, but like I think those things all create experiences where you can have really deep experiences without like say, you know, going to the middle of the wilderness or something. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a multi-day backpacking trip for you to have some really profound experience with nature. It can be really like, on the on the riverbank that you drive by every day or whatever. I recently interviewed a guy named Craig Caudill. He runs a uh, organization called Nature Reliance School, and they do tracking classes. And he said one of the things that they'll do is mark off a 1 foot by 1 foot square. He's located in Kentucky, um, and have his students study that 1 foot by 1 foot square for an hour. Because what you'll find is that there's insane biodiversity within that tiny area. And once you understand that, you can really start to appreciate everything else around, that then everything else sort of starts to come together. So, um, and also just like it makes life more fun. I was thinking the other day, like people who like something as simple as birds. Like there's people who see a bird fly by and they're like, oh, that's a bird. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, almost running off the road a couple times a day because I see a kestrel on a power line or something. It's like, how boring would my life be if every bird was just a bird?
The bird names are half the fun for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's a yellow-breasted tit?
Yeah, well,
And that's like an actual bird, I'm sure,
right,
somewhere.
exactly. That's the thing, is sometimes you just make it up and it's actually what it is.
Yeah, that sounds like about how I bird. I'd be like, that's a yellow belly tweeter or something.
Right.
And there is probably one of those. I don't know. I don't know birds very well, but I learn a great deal from them every time I'm out. And
Yeah.
there's always birds out when I'm out.
And it doesn't have to be birds. It could be fish or, plants or whatever. Or yeah, like plants, like wildflowers and stuff too. Like I put up a video the other day about Virginia spring beauty and like trilliums. Like there's all kinds of spring ephemerals popping right now, and sort of understanding how quickly they run through their life cycle and how not short-lived like from year to year, but how short-lived their flowering season is, really brings a whole different appreciation to seeing a trillium instead of like being like, oh, there's a white flower. Like, oh, that's a thing that might only be visible a week or two of the year.
Yeah. And I see plenty of them out too. It's funny too. Like there's a handful of fly patterns that I will use specifically when the trilliums are out. Because year after year, I've said like, okay, these 5 different flies have always done me very good right around trillium season, but they don't work nearly as well after or before. So I think that's really cool too. I think that life in nature mirrors one another at times, and then balances. I mean, overall, there's always such a balance going on. It's so delicate. But who we are in those different times is totally based on what the earth and the nature around us is doing. And we either mirror and assimilate to have success, or we completely ignore it and have failure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. There's a lot of truth in that. Yeah. Sort of going forward, like what are your hopes for Silver Hen, and what are your hopes for yourself?
So, first of all, hopes for myself are, it's what a loaded question, because first of all, I don't always have very many hopes for myself, like ever, but I have a lot of hopes for Silver Hen. But if there were hopes for myself, it would be a fish on a bucket list that I have. But I have a lot more hopes for Silver Hen, and that is that we can start a free women's club in the state of West Virginia to periodically and monthly teach fly tying classes and fly casting classes and overview of getting on the water and fishing knots and reading water and things like that. Because West Virginia does have some programs like the bow program, I know, becoming an outdoor woman. But I fear that other states that I've been to, Pennsylvania and Ohio specifically, have additional programs beyond what the states are available to provide. The women in the state have just flourished because of that. They've grown and there's more women in the industry. There's a lot of women here that want to learn, and no one's really stepping up to the plate to do it. And so I want to do free tying classes, and I want to do free casting. What does that take? It takes I think a couple of days of my time, to put it together and do the work and do the teaching. That's nothing to me. What is going to be difficult is finding like the grants or the funding to get all the vices, to get all the rods, to do the instruction of it all, which is fine. That'll come with time. I think for now I can just start small. I can work with other orgs that can help loan the equipment to me. But that has been one of my biggest goals since moving back, is getting a women's club going and contributing and helping the women have a resource out here in the state. Number two, I think I'd love to see Silver Hen grow. I mean, our branding right now is pretty good, because I've been printing shirts that have wonderful art on them from female artists. Every shirt that I printed, all the art on it has come from a local or industry woman artist, which I thought was really cool. And people love them. And I sometimes just see my shirt just walking down the road. I'm like, that's my shirt. So I think the outreach there has been really good. And it's gotten a lot of attention, and it generates a lot of traffic on the website and the Instagram and the Facebook and the things like that. But really having people recognize us as a resource to go to improve skills, do really fun float trips. I would love to do a lot more float trips on the yacht, because it is such a magical experience. Even if you just do like one trip with me, it's state park land. There's nothing there but you and the rivers and the mountains and the occasional train that comes by, and then passersby on the Gap Trail. And then, of course, like the animals and stuff. It's just, you almost kind of feel like you're in like a green part of Colorado or Montana, because, we have a lot more green around us than out west per se.
Mm.
And the mountains are still that are coming down that slope into the canyon of the Yaak there, they are just kind of towering over you. And it's my favorite river, so I love sharing it. And then we are kind of growing too with Silver Hen. So we just brought in a partner to Silver Hen. His name is Lucas Smith. He's a friend of mine, and he's a great guide, and he's been working with me on group trips since I was working at the outfitter, because I hired him. I used to be his boss, and if you talk to him ever, he'd probably tell you she never brings me into conversation without mentioning that she was once my boss. That's just my plug that I have to say, and also I have to like establish dominance,
Mm-hmm.
But he and I have been great friends. He was like my best man in my wedding, and he's an amazing guide, and he's a very hard worker. And he decided he wants to stay back in Pennsylvania this year instead of go out to Colorado and guide. And I was happy to have him. And so now we're able to have 2 boats on the river at a time, which is amazing. So instead of taking only 2 clients at once, we can take 4 down and do more groups and have more freedom to do that. And he's every bit as passionate about the yacht and Pennsylvania fishing that I am. So I'm excited about that. And he's probably a little more tolerable than me, so that's probably also good for my clients. But yeah, having like one of your best buds sticking around when they're usually gone throughout the season to be able to do fishing and grinding together, I think is amazing, and we're stoked to have him. I would like eventually to bring another float guide onto Silver Hen, but I've been very adamant that the next one, and I already have a couple ladies that work for me occasionally with clinics, and with women's clinics and bigger groups. My friend Sarah Lilly and my friend Emma Simone. Sarah's over in West Virginia and Emma's over in Ohio, and they're both extremely talented. Sarah's gone in Wyoming in the summer, and Emma is in Ohio, and I'm only up there for the steelhead season. But the next guide we bring onto staff, I would like it to be a female float guide. That entails her having like her own boat and maybe willing to take a partnership deal with Silver Hen when she comes on. But there's not a lot of float guides that are women on the eastern side of the state, especially in West Virginia or Pennsylvania even. A lot of them are out towards the Delaware River in Pennsylvania. So maybe a couple more years of encouragement and outreach to the locals maybe derives some interest for a lady to want to become a float guide. I don't know. You'd have to have a little bit of love for the whitewater, because if you know anything about the Yacht, it's got a lot of it. But impossible. And that's my hope. And I'm hoping that we can grow the business large enough to need another float guide for that matter. But those are all wishful thinking things. But there's a lot of great things that are happening now that it's hard to take it in appreciation in the moment and sit with it when it's happening, because everything is just coming at you at once. And there's always something new popping up that you have to tackle. So I'm trying to enjoy having a new partner and trying to enjoy that I have all these clients that love and support what we do, and learning to appreciate them even more, because without them, we wouldn't be here. So we just have a lot going on. We just need to slow ourselves down and just appreciate what's going on now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are you, like, when you do a float trip, are you going through whitewater when you're floating?
Some of it. So the middle section is what we guide on. And that's the section from Confluence to Ohiopyle. And the first 2 seconds of the trip, you're on the river we put over in Ramcat, which is at the bottom of Confluence there. And the first thing you go through is a class 2 rapid, and it's like a quarter to half a mile long. But it's fun. There's a lot of fish in there. And then we get some couple islands you go through with some flat water that you row through, and then it's really the second half of the float. So we stop over halfway point and do some lunch, and then the second half is all the rapids. But it's like, they're class 2s. I wouldn't even identify any of them as class 3s, really. But I mean, the clients think I'm crazy though when we're going through the rapids, and I really enjoy them. I start hooting and hollering, yeehaw, pulling through that, and they literally looks like the boat's about to hit a huge rock, and then we just skirt the last minute. That's where I get my kicks. Not so much the clients, but I mean, it creates a great environment for trout fishing, and waiting in those sections where the really great fishing is off the boat. It's just like, it's not possible doing it wade style. It's very difficult. But I think that's what makes the river great. And you want to fish it, you want to get one of those nice size giant yak browns, yak rainbows. The way to do it is from the boat.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me that you would also be going through the rapids while you were. I don't
There's like
whitewater,
no,
but
there are some there. So it's on, the raft is on a metal frame. So there are some places you can like kind of grab and hold on to, but a lot of people just like hold on to the chair. And I'm like, you're fine. We'll be all right.
yeah, I don't know. It's not as scary as you think it is. Yeah, I don't know. So last question here, and then I'll let you go. If there was a woman out there listening who like wants a new hobby, wants to get out of the house, have something she can do for herself, but hasn't never considered fly fishing before, what would you say to her to try to sell her?
What single sentence pitch would probably be, it's the most amazing thing you don't know it's missing out of your life. Because I've had ladies sign up for clinics that just came on a whim because their friend wanted them to come, or they had an extra spot or something. And I'll give you an example. There were I reached out to the local tourism bureau over in Fayette County. It's called Go Laurel Highlands. And I was like, I really like what they're doing. They got a lot of really great outreach, and they're really touching on some great businesses in the region. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, I want to become a member of Go Laurel Highlands, but I also maybe would like to do a marketing opportunity with you guys where I can take 2 of you, because that's all the room I have in my boat, down the river, and you guys can do a little content thing, film. You don't have to pay me anything, and we'll just have a fun day in the water. And they were like, okay. And they were like, all right, she's a female guy. We'll send a girl. So they sent me out their marketing manager specialist, and she had never done any kind of fishing in her whole life. And instead of picking another lady from that same bureau, they sent a lady from the Chamber of Commerce in Fayette County, because they work pretty close together. So I got one from the Chamber of Commerce and one from Go Laurel Highlands, and neither of them had done like any kind of fishing, not spin fishing, not line fishing with a hook and a worm like I did. So definitely not fly fishing. And I took them out, and they didn't know what to expect. And they each caught like 5 fish apiece. And the smiles on their faces like said everything. And they're just like, when are we going to go out next? I want to do that again. I always try to make time for them when I can, though I have been a bit behind, I will admit. But they still regale that memory and that experience to people that they meet. And they always talk really highly of me, though I tell them they don't need to do that. They don't need to lie. But they had such a good time. And those reels are still on my Instagram page. If you go check them out, just 3 girls having a girls' day on the water. But yeah, they were so. That's why I do what I do. For bringing people happiness and peace, and finding something that they enjoy doing while we're outdoors and all enjoying it together.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what the outdoors is all about at the end of the day. So,
Absolutely.
so tell people where they can find Silver Hen.
A couple of different ways. silverhenflyco.com is a great start. If you just want to follow me on my socials, Instagram at Silver Hen Fly Co, Facebook at Silver Hen Fly Co. And then I'm always at festivals, or I try to be. So I'll be at Cheat Fest. And every Cheat, are you familiar with Cheat Fest?
Courtney's told me some stories. That's all the more I know about it.
Oh God. Well, let me help you there. It's a really great river festival that supports Friends of Cheat. And nothing more. We all just go, we have fun, we listen to good music, but there are a lot of outfitters there. I'm the only fly fishing outfitter at Cheat Fest every year now. Before they didn't have any, but I always print a new shirt design for Cheat Fest because those people love my shirts, and I love giving them new designs every year. So I will have new shirt designs for this Cheat Fest. I'll be there the first weekend of May. And then the last weekend of May, I will be at the Appalachian Fly Fishing Festival in Thomas, West Virginia. And if you've never been to that, I'm sure you've been to Thomas and Davis, right? But if you've never been to that festival, I really recommend that you go, because just the best people in Appalachia that are outfitters or professionals in this area, in this region, they're just fabulous. They're there. They'll be there. I'm doing a little casting demonstration. There's something for kids, for ladies, for everybody. And it's a great time to come out with a family. I'll have shirts for sale there too, but just come check out my demos. And if you can't find me at any of those online addresses or any of those festivals, you can probably catch me poking around Ohio Pile every now and then. And then specifically when I'm off the water around 4 or 5 o'clock at the Twisted Spoke Cafe in Ohio Pile.
Awesome.
That's always my thing. I'll get done with the float trip with the client and then go have a beer.
Sounds good. So follow Silver Hen Fly Co everywhere. Go buy a shirt, book a trip, follow the ground between us everywhere. Please subscribe wherever you're listening or watching if you haven't already. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, y'all, we're all standing on the same ground.